Oh, we are rolling. Okay. Are you recording?
I'm rolling.
You're rolling. Okay.
You're rolling on the audio too?
Yes.
Solid.
Audio is rolling.
Turning. Yep. Right. And we've got your audio. You can hear Jason.
Yeah,
of
you
course.
can hear me
Yeah,
all right?
yeah. You sound fine.
All right, good.
I feel like when I'm watching a Star Wars movie that I'm home again. There is something profoundly different about watching a Star Wars film compared to any other great films. There's a lot of great films out there. But it's not the same. What keeps me coming back to it is that the older I get, it changes its meaning in a way. I start relating to other characters. In a way, it grows up with you, if you allow it. You want to be able to let go of that kid and experience it as an adult. It's to continue to find value and things to still learn from it. Maybe it's experiencing it through the eyes of your own children. When I was probably about 13 years old, I got a karaoke machine for Christmas one year. It was one of those deck-to-deck karaoke machines. I think it was called a singing machine, and you could put the backtrack in one and the blank tape in the other, and you could record yourself singing. I didn't want it to record myself singing. I wanted it because I wanted to pretend I was doing a radio show in my bedroom. I would set this thing up on my desk, and I took a coat hanger and I made a makeshift kind of microphone arm out of a coat hanger and was able to kind of suspend the microphone so it would kind of swing in front of me like you would see in a radio station. And I would record myself emulating my radio heroes, whether it be Howie Chiswick locally here, or Rush Limbaugh, or Howard Stern, or whatever. There was just a part of me that really wanted to put my own ideas and my own opinions out there. I guess it's a form of, some might say it's a form of arrogance, I don't know, but I wanted to communicate with other people about the things that I was passionate about, even as a kid.
Jason has always been a performer from the time that he was very young. He needs to perform, it's just in his blood. Had we not stayed together through like college and gotten married, all that stuff, he might have ended up in New York, I don't know. I guess I kind of brought him down to the middle-class suburban lifestyle, but I think he still has big dreams. And through the wonder of technology, he's able to live out those big dreams right in our basement.
franchises there are, Star Wars and Star Trek. Is it too much for one guy?
When I kind of think back when he was doing the shows in the early days with Pete, it would literally take them all night, practically, to do a show. It would take them forever to record the show, and then it would take him like another entire night to edit the show. And I was like, you are insane. I don't know why you were giving up literally 2 entire nights, losing sleep to do this.
Well, welcome to the ForceCast. We are your official podcast of theforce.net and rebelscum.com. Proud to be so. We are also your weekly dose of Star Wars, covering Star Wars news and commentary and all that good stuff like none other. Where else can you get this kind of coverage?
I don't know. Variety?
No, where else?
Yeah, I embarrassed to say that I have never actually listened to one of his shows, other than what I hear firsthand through the doors. What I do hear, I mean, it sounds like there's a professional radio show going on in the room next to me, and it didn't used to sound like that. So he's obviously gotten the hang of it.
To your point about, the Lawrence Kasdans and the George Lucases and perhaps the Dennis Murans and maybe even the Joe Johnstons that are available.
I remember when he first started talking about doing the podcast, and that was back when he was doing it with Pete. And I remember sitting out on our deck with the two of them, and I was just like, what are you doing this for? You're gonna have like 5 people listening to you. I was obviously wrong.
I knew that Star Wars was big, and I knew that people loved Star Wars. I've seen the movies. I don't think I actually saw the movies when I was dating Jim. So he made me watch each and every one, and they're fantastic, and I love them. It's not something I need to watch time and time again. It's not something I need to memorize dialogue from. It's just, I'm kind of jealous that I don't have a passion for something like that. But when he started doing these podcasts, I thought, great. You do what you love, surround yourself with people who have the same interests, and everything will come together. Well, it's really coming together because Star Wars fans there's just such a... They're all so passionate about it. I mean, you either have someone who's seen the movies and appreciates them, or you have someone who's never seen the movie, you have someone who saw it and didn't get into it, but the people who love Star Wars really love Star Wars. This exploded way beyond what I anticipated. I'll be in a store and I'll see someone wearing a Star Wars shirt. Hey, you like Star Wars? Got this great podcast for you, Rebel Force Radio. And I find myself promoting it, and I'm watching the downloads get bigger and bigger, and the whole Star Wars community is such a loyal community. Once they find something that they can relate to and that they love, they're on it, and they're telling all their friends. I just can't believe the loyalty that Star Wars fans have. All right, Jim's done what he's wanted to pretty much his whole career. He wanted to get into radio. He got into radio, loved it. But Star Wars is different. Star Wars is something he's loved since he's been a kid. So Star Wars is his passion. And to be able to put your passion into what you do every day, I mean, who doesn't want to do that? With Star Wars and his podcasts, he can reach out to the fans, and he can speak from his heart, because he's pretty much all about Star Wars.
I found this way to combine my fandom and my career. It's opened the door to a lot of other passion projects that I have. It's helped me sort of discover a new way to get audio entertainment out there.
Since Jim started podcasting, I think every aspect of his life he's been working harder at. It's weird. I see it. He loves it. He loves sharing it with his kids. That's really important to him.
Yes. Dylan? Gagging.
I don't know, it's brought more passion out in him for everything he does. It's just he wants to give more, he wants to do more, he wants to explode with all this newfound enthusiasm, I guess, is what it is. It's really brought a lot more passion into his whole life.
It represents your childhood in such a way. When you go back to Star Wars, you get the same buzz that you got when you were 8 years old. And you have that uninhibited scope of imagination that just comes back to you, where nothing is impossible. And so I look at it as like a celluloid fountain of youth, because it takes you back. It just expands the possibilities and lets you know that anything is possible. To do a podcast, I feel you have to have passion for whatever your subject matter is. So it's something that you're personally attached to, because it's coming more from your heart, as opposed to radio, which can sometimes be a job.
Jimmy just sets this incredible buffet out in front of me every week, and my job is to show up and eat it with as much style as I possibly can.
Anyone could regurgitate something they read on the force.net or rebelscum.com, but do you have a spin you could put on it? Do you have a passion for what you're talking about? Do you have feelings about it? Do you have opinions? Honest to God stuff? We should talk about the things that we have something to say about. Something we can put our own spin on. You want to keep it personal. And just hope your fandom relates to everyone else who listens.
We complement each other really well. Jimmy and I are totally Oscar and Felix. I'm a neat freak and have to have everything kind of laid out in advance, pre-planned. Jimmy is not. Jimmy is guerrilla tactics. Jimmy is get on the ground and then formulate your plan and do it right away. That just works. Jimmy knows how to work with me, and I know how to work with him. We really balance each other out well that way. We've heard from folks from the military, we've heard from attorneys, we've heard from folks in the entertainment business. All kinds, whether you're stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads. We get emails from guys that are staying home with the kids. I don't think there's a profession we haven't really heard from, to tell you the truth. To say who it is or to attempt to define them is difficult to do. You can't really define who's a Star Wars fan because it's so multi-generational and it crosses all boundaries, racial, economic, social. We get emails from folks all over the UK. We've gotten emails, I think, as far away as Australia, New Zealand, The internet was really, and still suffers from, being a very angry place. I think that what the FORCEcast did was, it was one of the first safe environments for fans to come together.
It makes you feel really good about what you're doing. And then you say, well, there's no slowing down now, because it fulfills people on a level that we're totally unaware of. For as much as I get out of it, I'm surprised to find out how much other people get out of it.
What they do with their show is they provide this platform for all of us to come together as one and be connected to each other.
Fans were able to reach out to them and call into the show or send emails. They made us a part of the show, so we felt like we were there too, and it made it even that more special.
People realised straight away that this was way better than anything else that was out there, whether you're talking about fan casts or you're talking about something that the BBC is putting out. I don't think there's anybody out there that's doing anything that touches them.
I definitely feel like I have a personal connection with the show because, you know, the FORCEcast was one of the first interviews that I ever did as the voice of Ahsoka.
It's become very important for me. There's something special about the group of friends that's grown around this show.
You do feel like you get to know them, and some of the stories and anecdotes that they talk about, I can relate to. I say, oh my gosh, I remember that. I did the same thing. So it's things that you can relate to on a personal level.
It's nonstop entertainment. And that's what they really do. They provide Star Wars entertainment. And Jimmy and Jason are just fantastic to listen to.
You can hear it over the airwaves that they just love what they're talking about. And that really measures up with me, and I know a lot of other fans.
The FORCEcast really was a catalyst for a group of people to get together. We've made friends that I think will be our friends for a whole lifetime.
Probably the best part is the fact that we connect so many people, not nationally, internationally. It's really fantastic, and it's really about the connection.
It provides an avenue of discussion and all of that, but it's also a way of connecting people and interact with each other. Because it's not so much the show, but it's community.
It's brought us all together. They spread the word. Great informative stuff for Star Wars fans.
I think people feel like they know the guys even if they haven't met them in person. I think that's the real pull, you know, they don't sound like robots just shooting off Star Wars news.
It's like one friend talking to another friend. They're just talking about what they love to do. And you're kind of listening in, because I think we're all the same. I think we're all looking for somebody to just hang out with and talk about the things that matter, because it's not just Star Wars, it's the way Star Wars relates to life. It's the way that Star Wars relates to everything.
You develop a relationship, even though you may not ever see them or meet them, but it's an ongoing thing, it's an ongoing friendship, and you really become a part of each other's lives.
They have a really good connection with everybody because they are just one of us, even though they've talked to, you know, Jimmy's talked to George Lucas, Jimmy's talked to Frank Oz.
We all feel like we're part of the Lucasfilm family because of them, you know.
Well, it's definitely a stress reliever. It lets you go to a galaxy far, far away.
I typically download from iTunes and listen to it on my MP3 player while I ride my bike, and usually it's an hour at a time, so it takes me a couple rides on a weekend to get through 1 week.
You will finish it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's entertaining enough that the 2 hours or however long the episode is go by really fast. Sometimes I listen to an episode more than once.
It's become really important to people. I mean, I think if they ever stopped for any reason, I think a lot of people would be incredibly upset.
When we say by the fans for the fans, this is really one true success story.
I have enjoyed listening to them for years and years and years. We love them.
Being Italian, every Sunday we'd go to church and we'd go to my grandma's for pasta. Well, podcast listeners go back every week to go for the family dinner. That's kind of what it's like.
To see it explode and hear from people from all over the world, and to find a common bond among all of us and similarities that transcend boundaries, age, sex, race, lifestyle. just to know that we can all connect over this one thing, in this case Star Wars, that's always been a big surprise to me.
Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any sci-fi or fantasy franchise that we like, we now have the ability to share that common point, because in an age where people get really spread apart with political disagreements, with social disagreements, the internet in many ways brings people apart. Just go to a YouTube video and look at the comments and you'll see a level of division that's created. This kind of social media and this kind of personal interaction is a very, very different medium. And they started what, 2005, 2006, and we were kind of in dark corners. When I say our voice, the voice of our generation of people who actually want to share something in common that brings people together from radically different backgrounds, and that brings diverse opinion and brings diverse discussion to something as what some people might call a silly Star Wars show.
Changing hard pains and certain things that change your mind frame and rearrange your mentality.
One thing that I know about Star Wars fans is that we can all get together and talk about how awesome this is. We can talk about the hero's journey. We can talk about the rights of the individual over whatever encroaching, powerful mechanism, whether it's government, whether it's religion, whatever it is that is stepping on our throats as an individual. I think we can come together on that, regardless of political persuasion. I think we all want to be validated as individuals. I've learned a lot from listeners of the show, and I've really softened in some ways.
This community is made up of people with so many different positions that it's helped me put a face to all these different positions. And it's given me a new worldview, and that these people who don't agree with me on everything are still great, wonderful people. And it's helped me learn how to communicate with others who have differences, and help me learn to love others and listen better, and to really give people a chance to establish who they are and why they are that way without just assuming things about people. It's taught me to be so much more accepting and understanding of people who are different, and that community exists because of the Force Cast.
There's an innate ability of fans of, say, Star Trek, Star Wars, to not fear differences. I mean, look at Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 2 coming into Dexter's Diner and giving a hug to this big snail-like thing with 4 arms and embracing him. Filling our heads full of that kind of imagery has really made us more open to people and things that look different.
We provide escapism. That's the key. Star Wars provides the escapism for all of us. But when you're with your friends and you're talking about Star Wars, you're analyzing episodes of the Clone Wars or debating which order you should watch the films in, that's fun. That's escapism too. The reason we like Star Wars so much is because it provides us with that escape. But it's more than just watching a movie or reading a book or flipping through a comic. It's talk, it's discussion, it's community, it's friends. It's a bond.
The sounds are fading out, the shapes are blurry now, it creeps me out. I'm wondering how you managed to get in. You wronged me twice and sent me mail. Can you leave now, because I've had a long day.
We unleash the force of Samurai on us all. Should we get? Oh shit! Let's look at this. Oh my God, it's like Peter Jackson photography.
Who's the Hobbit? Maybe. There it goes. There we go. Well, we first were introduced to Dave Filoni at Celebration 4 in LA when we got the first glimpse of the Clone Wars. There was just something so magnetic about Dave. Passion for Star Wars, and it's well known what a fan he was before his time as a Lucasfilm employee. So he had that perfect combination of fan and insider. You just couldn't help but root for the guy.
I was shocked. Right away, he told me he listened to the show. And back in those days, there was no coverage anywhere for Star Wars: The Clone Wars. But we were talking about it every week. And this is just prior to the time of the movie release. So it hadn't even really debuted. And he revealed to me he knew all about our podcast. And it just was really wild to me that he was acting very enthusiastic about coming on the show and talking about the Clone Wars. And he wanted to bring the talent that he worked with onto our podcast.
Jason and Jimmy were really the first podcast I was ever really aware of. That wasn't my world. I didn't know anything about podcasting per se, and I would see this thing at that time called the Force Cast, and I thought, well, what is this? And I would listen to it, and especially for me being a newbie to Lucasfilm back in 2005, I was kind of interested to see, wow, am I even going to show up on their radar? And boy, did I show up for years to come. They were really the first people that gave what my team and I at Lucasfilm were doing a chance.
The Clone Wars and our podcast came up at a time when we both kind of needed each other. I think that the Clone Wars had a certain hill to climb with fans, and so did we. Our show wanted to go to the next level to where we were seen as a legitimate news source, you might say, for Star Wars fans. The Clone Wars needed some help in getting the word out of how great this show was.
Yo, check, 1, 2.
They were reporting on the Clone Wars as if it was as significant as any of the films that were coming out. And I always appreciated that. You know, they deeply analyzed everything we were doing, and I would sit there and you know, while I was at work at Lucasfilm, I would listen to their podcast and I would go, no, that's wrong. But then they would say other stuff. I'm like, oh, that's right on. Okay, so they got it. They understood what I was trying to say and what we were writing. So it's just, for me as a fan, I don't know, it somehow kept me feeling connected to other fans, even though I was now working for Lucasfilm. You know, and sadly, I'll be honest with you, there were some amazing sequences.
I think our show spoke to the fan in him. I mean, he often said if he wasn't doing what he was doing with Lucasfilm, that he would be trying to be the third co-host on the podcast. He said that a couple of times. Dave would come on our show. He could geek out as much as anybody. He didn't have to dumb it down. He could assume a certain pre-existing understanding of the universe and the characters and all of that. So he could go a little bit deeper. We offered him an outlet that he couldn't find, say, with Entertainment Weekly or USA Today.
The production value of their show is incredible. They have a great banter between the two of them. I mean, the two of them are nuts. I mean, absolutely. And their personalities are both very varied and different. I mean, they combat with each other. It's, you know, in some ways, like, they would be characters in the Star Wars universe. You know, I mean, it's not that far a throw for me to imagine them as radio hosts somewhere in the galaxy far, far away. I just give you the whole thing here of my download on those two. Here they are at this kind of table like you see set up at, you know, a picnic, folded out legs, and they've got these little mechanisms laid out. I'm like, wow, look at this stuff, and this is how you do it. This is really amazing that this works. And they had a cardboard box that they shipped everything in, and someone had fried the board, like one of the computers had completely fried. They were just, it had all the elegance that the Millennium Falcon does. You know, it's not much to look at, but it's got it where it counts, and that kind of sums up Rebel Force Radio.
You know, in sports talk, they go into the locker rooms. We get to go to Skywalker Ranch.
When we first started talking to Dave Filoni back in 2007, 2008, Dave would always tell us these stories about working on Skywalker Ranch. I think it was because I asked him, what's up with the hat? And he explained to us, well, he would go on these walks to contemplate scripts, and he'd be outside in this beautiful environment. So he needed a hat to cover his neck and everything from getting sunburned. Hearing Filoni talk about it, I had a picture in my head of what it would be like to go there.
Well, first of all, it's a privilege as a fan to go to the ranch. There's so few fans that actually get to go. Jimmy and I, we're not filmmakers. We're not in the business. So I think we're part of a pretty small fraternity of Star Wars fans that get to go to, for us fans, what essentially is Mecca, really.
So you drive this windy road as you approach Skywalker Ranch, and around you, you see hills and ravines and greenery. I knew it was gonna be nondescript on the outside. I wasn't expecting a flashing neon light saying Skywalker Ranch, over 60 billion served. But I was really surprised at how downplayed the entrance was, just pulling in. I actually drove by it the first time, not realizing.
The one thought that crossed my mind as we were approaching the gate, and I had known, of course, that Jimmy had been there before, but the thought that crossed my mind was, were we really invited? Did they really know we were coming? Because Jimmy comes from a style of journalism and radio, which is if the door isn't open for you, you kick it down. And so I was just like thinking in the back of my mind, really, do they know we're coming? Is this going to be okay? So the crackly voice comes, you know, out of the intercom. Jimmy Mack for Matt Wood. And I'm expecting him to say, Jimmy what? Jimmy who? But to my surprise, they said, come on through. Gate open. Amazing feeling to go through that gate knowing that I was going to see for the first time the house that Star Wars built.
And when the gates opened up and just driving that winding road toward the tech building and the main house, I think I just took my foot off the accelerator and I said, let me just soak all this in. There's no need to hurry.
I think that the ranch is just as much a part of the mythology of Star Wars as the story in the movies. I mean, if you think about what we grew up as fans hearing about, it wasn't just the stories themselves, it was the creative process and the creative people that helped make the films. And one of the outgrowths of that was this, essentially what is sort of a commune for filmmakers. And so there's a mythical quality to it. Also knowing the care that George put in planning the ranch out so that it really was this incredibly natural, comforting environment for creative people to do their process. It symbolized the incubator almost for Star Wars.
We approached the main house. Plenty of photo ops, and then Matt made the move up the steps onto the porch. My head started to swim, and I said, here we are, we're crossing the threshold.
You know, you kind of look at each other and you go, wow, we made it.
And you walk in there and there's a display cabinet, and there are legitimate props from the Indiana Jones films, the Javitos Idol, the whips, indie whips, maquettes from Star Wars Episode 1, Charlie Chaplin's hat, the actual Imperial Walker that Phil Tippett moved frame by frame. It's stop motion photography. That walker is there. That is Star Wars history. And of course, in the library, it's beautiful, ornate wood design, spiral staircase. But the first thing that captures your attention, you look up at the stained glass mural that serves as the ceiling and cascades this orangish glow down onto the books and the desks. It's just an incredible room.
Jimmy decided to go off-roading a little bit on our way out of the ranch. We ended up to where we know the archives are. And to be that close, to be a door width away from what we know to be back there, that was incredible. That was incredible. I would love to go through it sometime, but it was not to be then. But it's always good to have goals. We had been hearing for a year or better, prior to the Disney sale, that the Clone Wars was going to wind down, perhaps over the next couple of years, and that was really going to be George's final statement on Star Wars, and that he was going to retire, and when he retired, that was really going to be it. And we'd kind of resigned ourselves to that.
I'd been fearing the worst at that time. I thought George was going to retire, and I thought he was going to shut down Star Wars. He had always said that when he goes, he's taking Star Wars with him. Why should we think he was lying?
When are the next installments of Star Wars coming out?
Never. 7, 8, 9. Never?
It seemed really possible that he was just going to fade off into the sunset, and so was Star Wars.
What do you mean you're
Harrison
retired? We
Markin.
love you. He said they are never coming out. I guess there's going to be no more new movies.
And all we basically saw was Star Wars Detours, parody animated show, and the continuation of the Clone Wars. We figured maybe they had a couple more seasons left in them. Star Wars Detours then would pick up the animation baton, but a parody to lead the way into the future for the Star Wars franchise didn't really feel all that right to me.
Hit it!
One second, you're living in one world, and another second, your world completely changes.
Today, I am proud to announce the Walt Disney Company is acquiring Lucasfilm, the global entertainment company founded by George Lucas and the home of the legendary Star Wars franchise.
Sale to Disney happened, the announcement that not only was a new Star Wars film coming, but a whole trilogy, plus other films.
My phone just practically jumped off the table. It was vibrating so much with texts, tweets, all kinds of updates, emails, and the phone rings and it's Jimmy Mack. And he's like, "Did you hear?"
The Magic Kingdom and the Star Wars Empire have agreed to a merger.
It was just unbelievable.
We were preparing to do a show that night, and Jason called me and said, throw everything away that we were gonna talk about today and just talk about this news. And I was almost intimidated for a second. I was like, this is huge news. We don't have any time to, this is breaking right now. We have a whole show prepared, ready to go. And if we go with this fresh news, it's going, he's like, no, forget about it.
All right, everybody just calm down. Relax, take a deep breath.
This is all anyone's gonna wanna talk about.
Talking to you, Jimmy. Deep breath, I wanna hear it. A little fired up, Twitter's exploding, emails exploding all afternoon. And you and I just minding our own business. Not causing anybody any trouble.
It was just that moment of feeling like this news is too big even for our Star Wars show. It was like of that magnitude. I thought, well, maybe, ABC News should be covering this, not Rebel Force Radio. But as soon as we started talking about it, everything fell into place.
Wouldn't you know it, mid-afternoon, something happened.
And the new era of Star Wars had begun.
Something huge. This is the biggest. I don't think, and even if you go back to the mid-90s and the ramp up to the prequels, I don't think that even compares to this. Truly. We'll get into it. We'll talk about that. So fear not. There's been lots of begging and pleading. Please, there's got to be a Forcecast.
It was a real shot to my fandom adrenaline.
I think that it gave me, probably more than anything, a rejuvenated feeling towards the show. As a Star Wars podcast, completely changes everything.
It really made us reevaluate everything we were doing in the realm of Star Wars and why we were doing it and who we were doing it for. So that kind of really pushed us through the door, through the threshold to begin our own show, to begin Rebel Force Radio, was because with the new era of Star Wars, we believed a new era of Star Wars podcasting should also go alongside it. So we wanted a rebirth because we felt like the franchise was being reborn at the same time.
Jimmy Mack and Jason Swank usher in a new era of Star Wars podcasting.
Rebel Force Radio.
They have their own stage, at Star Wars Celebration. I never saw that coming.
Is that what he wanted? It was always on our mind that that was something that might happen. We'd been to enough shows, we had seen some of the work that the stage hosts had done before, and we thought, well, that would be fun, that would be interesting. But to then actually be asked was probably one of the biggest messages to us that there was recognition that we were connecting with an audience. That would make us suitable hosts.
I'm not a big convention guy. I don't often go to Comic-Cons, but the one show that I've been to that really had an impact on me was Star Wars Celebration. So when we got the call to actually host our own stage at Star Wars Celebration, it was a dream come true. Before the event even started, we were able to sit in our room, just among the audience, and watch the trailer for the new Star Wars film. We had a pretty good idea it was coming.
I mean, who wasn't excited about the possibility of seeing that trailer? We all kind of knew that that's what was going to be shown. Seeing the trailer, I can't think of a better environment to have watched the trailer. I had Jimmy Mack on one side, I had Paul Bateman on the other side, his wife Athena, Kyle Newman was there. It was just, it was magic. And then, of course, the payoff was, you know, I can't think of anything more amazing theatrically than that final moment of the trailer.
Chewie, we're home.
When that trailer hit, yeah, there's few moments as a Star Wars fan that will have that kind of profound impact on me. Where it just sort of like transcended everything that constructs me and just made me 100% Star Wars fan for that moment.
Of the behind-the-scenes stage, your source for the voice, Jimmy Mack.
There's a big difference, enormous difference, between, you know, sitting in your home studio with headphones on, talking to one of your best friends in the world for a couple of hours about Star Wars.
What did you think of the trailer?
And being in front of 1,000, 2,000, or in the case of closing ceremonies, tens of thousands of Star Wars fans.
We're going to watch instead of introduce you to some of the key players.
That is intimidating.
Great panel here yesterday about the concept.
We did it over and over again. You know, the big introduction, we'd run up on stage. I can't believe how many times we did it. Each time was very memorable when we went up on that stage.
Here at our Wretched Highway, Scum and Villainy. I ain't seen Pablo Tom, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. It's like it's doing it on purpose.
It's kind of like you're channeling all of the fan energy and then putting that out.
Everybody have a great rest of your day at Star Wars Celebration. Thank you.
Closing ceremonies for Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. I saw nothing but people from the main floor to the highest rafter. The place is packed and people are all waving the lightsabers. That's what made the impact on me. I've always imagined it being like that, looking out at the audience at a Star Wars Celebration from the stage and seeing nothing but lightsabers waving in the air. And that's what we saw.
What's up, Star Wars Celebration?
Before you start, just give me a little something so I can set my levels here. Go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at Hollywood Boulevard, it's Billy Mack.
Cross over into a new era. It's like a rebirth. That's what it feels like to me. And also seeing all these amazing people out here at Hollywood Boulevard Cinemas. And I'm sure this scene is being replicated in theaters all over the United States at this very moment. All this does is validate and justify
the fact that I say it loud and say it proud for Star Wars every single day. So that's how I'm feeling. Yes, thank you, thank you. Say it loud, say it proud.
I don't know that I've even really fully processed it. I don't think for me, now maybe I'm a little bit more in the Sam Witwer camp, where for me it's not going to be real until I am sitting there and those yellow letters crawl across the star field. I mean, I guess in some ways I'm feeling like I keep thinking about me as that 6-year-old in the theater. That's where I'm feeling right now.
When that blade went through Solo's midsection there, I felt it. I mean, we always thought that would happen, and now that it has happened, I feel like I love the film, but I still feel like I'm mourning a little bit the loss of an old friend. Yeah.
We really wanted to make the audience know for sure this guy is never coming back at all. Lightsaber through the chest and he falls into oblivion.
And Leia feels the tremor to Force. That was the confirmation.
Yeah, that his fire has gone out in the galaxy.
I can't believe it. Han Solo's dead.
You know, we should have known better. We should have known.
Again!
I don't know where this goes. I guess we're all just gonna have to wait and see. The craziest thing I could think of that would be like just completely third wall breaking, I'm not even sure it should happen, would be if they made it somehow into one of the movies. There's so many movies coming up. I don't know that it would be my fault that that ever happens. It would not surprise me to one day be looking at dailies on something and go, oh my gosh. And that would be, I don't know.
I can't tell you how many doors it's opened for me since I've started doing this. Since I've gone ultra public with my fandom, and week after week I produce these shows dedicated to Star Wars. It's been more than just an obsession with a film or a case of hardcore fandom. It's been something that's actually provided a lot to me professionally. It's been extremely fulfilling to me as both a fan and a person. And it's something I just never want to forget.
Star Wars is about family. Those bonds that bring those characters together, that's really what family is about. We later find out that actually Luke and Leia are really brother and sister, but I think they're really brother and sister before that. It doesn't matter whether your family abandons you or you abandon your family, eventually you find it. And in choosing your destiny and choosing your path, then you find where you belong. And that's home. What it has come to mean to people, the spirit of all the things that Star Wars represents, those ideas, those ideals, they're never going to go away. The formula that George used to represent those and to deliver those, people just can't get enough of it. Because he knew that it was going to and had to outlive him. It's certainly going to outlive me. It's something that I can pass on to my kids, and they'll probably be passing on to their kids. It's our mythology. In some ways, it's the story of our childhoods. Collectively, it's the story of all of us.
It's a story about redemption, a redemption of your soul. It's a story that tells you that even in your bleakest hour, things can and probably will turn around. You should never give up. And you should have faith. That's pretty important. And that's a message I think is what resonates among Star Wars fans and keeps them coming back for more, and why we won't let it die because it's that important to us. All the people I've met through it, we're all touched by it. And we relate. And then that gives us ground zero to build something bigger and better.